And by the magic of fancy science, we are back. Apologise for that. That was some gremlins in the studio and in my place, I think, to be perfectly honest with you. So I apologise for that slight break in broadcasting. If you are joining us across the usual channels, we thank you for your time. Scott, we were talking there about the inclusion of John Lundstram at the, obviously with Raskin missing out, potentially looking ahead, Raskin missing out further into the weekend. It was an opportunity for whoever was to come into that role to really stake a claim. We did think, and before the Gremlins got a grip of us, we did think that Lundstram kind of slowed down things for us a little bit.
Yeah, pretty much. I think, as we were saying, especially in the sort of turnover from a defensive position into a more attacking position in that sort of phase, Lundstram just seems to deliberate a bit much on the ball for me. He doesn't seem to have that focus and that idea of I want to do this as soon as I turn, bang, and get the ball out. It's more of a let's turn and then make a decision what we want to do here. It doesn't seem to come as first nature to him. It comes second nature. And again, I don't know whether that's we're maybe playing him in a position that he's not comfortable with. Maybe he doesn't like that sort of deep lying six role that we're putting him in. I think I was saying the last time, as you say, just before the Gremlins cut us off, I think we've seen under the Michael Beale, Steven Gerrard sort of tactical style that John Lundstram really, really struggles to get going. Under Giovanni Van Bronckhorst, it was a different kettle of fish. He was a different player. He was a lot more confident in the ball, and he was a lot more influential for us under Gio. But I think that's because Gio gave him more of a license further up the pitch. But yeah, no, I'd agree. It really does seem to slow things down. Bit of breaking news as well, by the way, in case anybody wants to know. Graham Potter has been sacked as Chelsea manager. Just want to put that in there as well, if that's okay, Scott.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's nothing as mental as football, is there? What, absolutely 7 months? Is he in the job sort of half a year? And he's been bumped already after spending about 800 million gazillion pounds. So listen, football's mental. AG jumps in at the chat to say Lundstram time is up in the summer. I think it's going to be interesting summer for many of them that were involved yesterday, to be perfectly honest with you. Kyle, the first half yesterday was largely as we've came to expect at Rangers. Lots of a lot of passing left, right and centre and trying to break down that low block. Jim Goodwin always puts on an attractive brand of football when he comes to our side of town. And there was sort of moments in the first half that we probably could have taken the lead before we eventually did. Tav had forced a good save for the United keeper. Kent had a drive across goal after some good work from him outside the box, and he broke in. Cantwell had an effort, which the goalkeeper spilled out to Tillman. Tillman, I think we can whisper, took a wee bit of a dive to try and win a penalty, personally. And then we took the lead, and it was Todd Cantwell and Malik Tillman who really sort of combined really, really well. Cantwell with a really clever assist and Tillman with a really, really good finish, wasn't it?
Yeah, with this goal, it's actually hard to decide what was better. The Cantwell's ability to stay on his feet and to find that pass being off balance. Malik Tillman's first touch, which I just thought was absolutely superb, or the composed finish itself. I think there was a couple of, if you take the goal back a wee moment, before the goals and pass into Cantwell, it was really, really lovely build-up play. I thought it's worthwhile mentioning that it was really clever by Jack just to let that ball sort of run through onto Goldson. It is a bit of a frustration at mine at times watching the teams where I think we do take that one touch or one pass too many in the midfield, which Scott's just excellently talked about there in terms of John Lundstram. But it was really nice to see that Jack had the sort of ingenuity to know to leave it for Goldson. And then the other thing about that was 99 times out of 100, I expect that ball to go out wide to Tav or find its way back to Borna or maybe Goldson's finding Ben Davies again, who I know we're going to come on to talk about later. But it was just nice to see something different. It's obviously indicative of the trust that I think the team's now got in Cantwell, because I think before we would have been reluctant to maybe play that ball, but now that we know that he's got the skill, the ability, and let's face it, he's taken no shit off at anybody in this league. which I think stands his teammates in really good stead as well. It was a fantastic pass into him, a fantastic pass from Cantwell. And yeah, just as you said, Ross was very excited, sat next to me, the fact that Malik Tillman was playing as that 9 as he's been banging on about. But yeah, it was a really good goal, and at that point, honestly, it was all Rangers deserved to go 1-0 up.
Celebration was outstanding as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, was that a wee reference to the NFL?
No, it was either NFL or the basketball. I don't know. I don't do any of these sort of. Scott Mitchell, you strike me as an American sports guy. Was there did that sort of the celebration strike a chord with you at all?
Never watched an American sport in my life other than the Super Bowl, Scott. So thanks very much for dropping me in it there. It was the New York Pelicans that he was copying. I don't know.
It did. Well, listen, I don't even know if they're a team, but if they aren't, then fair play, they certainly should be. It did look like it was a sort of basketball thing. As I say, I'm not a follower of basketball, so I apologise to any basketball followers in the chat. But listen, Scott, joking aside, we regularly refer to Cantwell now that he's back in, and we know how important he is to the way that we play. And I think I've said myself, I think him and Raskin, they should be guys that we look to build around moving forward. If Tillman is lucky enough to come in the summer, which we'll get to as the pod sort of goes on, I think he's another one that's going to be in there that everyone is going to be built around those 3 guys. It's good to see Cantwell and Tillman definitely building up that relationship on the pitch, and they're obviously quite friendly off it as well.
100%. Tillman, especially, if I can touch on him very briefly, I've always very, very hesitant to get attached to loan players because we all know what could potentially happen here. We could potentially lose the services of Malik Tillman in the summer. Yeah. I'd be gutted to see him go, but Todd Cantwell for me is slotted into that midfield 3 absolutely brilliantly. I've got a few pals that I know when they initially came in, they were thinking Todd Cantwell wasn't going to be a very good fit in this Rangers team, and they have been proven wrong. There's been absolute silence from them on the Todd Cantwell front ever since. He's been instrumental, I think, in most of the good things. Since he's come into the team, he's been instrumental in most of the good things that have happened for us. And it was just a bit of genius yesterday. Some people might think, oh, he's tried to take a touch or he's tried to play the ball in along the ground. He's meant exactly what's happened when he's played that ball into Tillman. Yeah. And I think it's just fantastic, the ability that he's got and the kind of work rate that he's got as well. And yeah, he's striking up a good partnership with Tillman. Don't think you can avoid the partnership he strikes up with Scott Wright as well. Him and Scott Wright seem very, very pally off the pitch. And although I'm not his biggest fan, Scott Wright as well, when he came on yesterday, done a wee bit of a turn at Scott Wright back.
Listen, you're absolutely Scott Wright back. I love that. And I think you're absolutely right. One thing that I think it does show, and as much as Wright's versatility, and do you know what I mean? We know we were playing against Dundee Utd at home, so we need to be really careful to temper it, I think. But I think to bring him on and play that sort of wing back role, if you like, I thought it looked quite dangerous when he came on. And I have to say, he was playing a left back. The Dundee United left back got an absolute doing yesterday. I think he was hitting the coop with the ball a couple of times, sort of in quick succession. But that's what he gets for getting to have that ridiculous yellow card, as far as I'm concerned. And I think Broxy the Bear agrees that it certainly wasn't a yellow, and it's hard to disagree. We go in at half time, 1-0 up, and do you know that way they come out for the second half and you think, what are we going to see here? Because in the first half it did end a bit of a damp squib, I felt, because we'd taken the lead. Kent had hit the bar. It became a bit of a routine thing. It became a classic sort of Jim Goodwin performance at Ibrox, as I say, and it wasn't great to watch. I didn't think, as much as we were trying to sort of break down that sort of 5-4-1 that was particularly stuffy, as you probably expect to come out in the second half. Tav forces a save from their goalkeeper again. Morelos forces a good save too. Second goal of the afternoon, Tavernier just bombing down the right-hand side, dinks it in. Kent gets it on the 18-yarder and I think goes to try and trick the centre-half in front of him, and it slips into Tillman, Kyle, and he sort of slams it by via the sort of goalkeeper's legs to get the second, and that 2-0 sort of gap, which in turn becomes the winning result for us in the afternoon.
Yeah, just a couple of things on that. Number one, I know you're slagging Jim Goodwin off, but remember the last time his Aberdeen team thought that they could come and play against us, we plastered them off the pitch. So fair play about that. But yeah, in terms of that second goal, it was really the only. There was one or two times that Rangers actually broke on the counter attack, and that was one of them. It was a really good dart and run forward by Tav. He kept going. Ryan, let's face facts, Ryan Kent's touch in and around the box was so bad at that point. And it was, from a Rangers point of view, I suppose it was fortunate that it fell to Tillman. And yet again, I know Ross and I spoke about him glowingly live from Ibrox yesterday, but it was just picking his moment. Like I've loved watching that go back. Just to take one touch, I think he feigned a shot, and then he just picked that moment. And it wasn't a hard shot. He placed it. He knew what he was doing. It was in a really awkward position for the Dundee United goalkeeper, and it was a fantastic goal just to make it 2-0. And I mean, he's really, really shown us. That's the thing about Malik Tillman. See, if you look at the goals, I think it's 12 goals this year he scored for us.
Yeah, he's got a great record.
He scored all different types of goals. He scored, you remember him, he scored the header against USG away back at the start of the season. He scored that Thunder Bastard against Motherwell last weekend. And the first goal yesterday was I would say that was almost like an instinctive informed striker. And then that fourth goal there was just a brilliant goal to take his time and compose it. And again, all we deserved at that point, because we were by far the only team interested in scoring that second half.
Listen, Paul McGarrigle has reminded me of something, and I did forget about it until he's brought it up in the YouTube feed, but I'm glad he has. Did you guys see the penalty that we didn't get when Alfie was pushed in the back when going for a header? Yes, we did. And I thought it was a penalty. I thought it was even more astounding that they didn't go to VAR to look at it. I almost think that the way that Morelos moves after being contacted, and that's not something we can influence. He only knows how hard he was pushed, or if he was pushed enough to be pushed over. I felt it was a penalty, Scott. I don't know what you thought when you seen it firsthand.
I mean, initially, yeah, thinking it's a penalty, absolutely. But that, like you say, you're more bemused now when that doesn't go to VAR, because it's, as my understanding is, when it's in the box, it doesn't have to be a clear and obvious mistake for the referee to have missed it. Any penalty decision or penalty shout gets checked by VAR, is my understanding of the situation. So the fact that that's potentially been checked by another person, i.e. the VAR assistant, and then they've not said, go and have a look at that. I can't remember who the referee was yesterday. I just find it astounding. I mean, at the end of the day, if we'd got a penalty yesterday, all we'd be hearing about is how lucky are Rangers throughout this whole weekend. So
yeah,
for one part, I'm glad we didn't get the penalty, but at the end of the day, it's not quite a stonewaller, but I think in VAR terms, it's probably one of those that you have to at least check it. It has to get looked at, and it's surely then, if anyone's looking at that a second time, they're thinking, it's probably a penalty. Maybe it's because it's Morelos. That's all I can think.
Yeah. And I think as well, it's when we refer to VAR, and VAR's got its inefficiencies. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And it's got its wee quirky things as well. There was a Don Robertson, who was in charge of the game yesterday, did indeed go to VAR later on in the second half for an incident involving Cholak, when, if memory serves me right, the ball came in from Barisic, and the ball drops over the Dundee United centre half and hits his hand without him looking at it. No penalty. And I don't think they made the same decision today in Dingwall with a very, very similar incident from what I've seen so far. So, listen, as I say, it's got its quirks, it's got its bits and pieces that you'll agree or inevitably disagree with. But I was surprised that they never went to VAR on that yesterday. Kyle, one player who is definitely playing like he is playing for a new contract is Ryan Jack right now. It was really good to see him come back from it, and I say this almost facetiously. It was nice to see him come back from international duty and be able to play for us immediately after that, wasn't it?
Yeah, honestly, it's ridiculous that we even have, we're half joking about it, but see, in all seriousness, it is shocking that we expect a player to go to the national team in I'd actually love to see the record on it. I don't have it off the top of my head, but I'd love to see how many times he's been unavailable for selection after coming back and from Scotland duty. I think Michael Beale is the type of guy that would certainly be saying he needs managed when he's away, because he's an important player. Yeah. I think everybody on this podcast will know I'm no great lover of the national team. I just don't bother about the results or whatever. But I think I saw something in the media about the Scotland assistant manager saying that wherever they train was not good enough, which I found shocking as well. Yeah, but yeah, it was really, really nice just to have him back. He's a player that we've got to manage. He's certainly playing for a new contract. For what it's worth, I know that we'll maybe come on to talk about that we maybe need to lose a bit of the emotion when it comes to sort of re-signing play, like giving players contracts, extending their contracts. But Ryan Jack is one for me that I would be looking to do that. Certainly on his more recent forms. I know Scott talked about Lundstrom not fitting in to this Beale system. For me, Ryan Jack is a player that is perfect for this system. We saw it yesterday. Even when we were sort of flirting with the idea of a back three in that first half, when you saw Tav and Borna pushing up, Ryan Jack was the player that was just coming back and making that a back three at times. And yeah, he was really, really good in that game. And for me, I totally agree with what Paul McGarrigle's saying there on the screen. I would give him a year's deal, looking at to be a rolling contract, because and we've got aspirations of playing again in Europe next year, and he fits that Scotland quota. And he's pretty decent for us in the midfield.
Do you know what way I think as well? It's a common misconception. I think Ryan Jack's played a lot more games this season than what people maybe give him credit for. Now, there's obviously the argument about whether he's playing sort of 10, 90 minutes with any great degree of regularity, but he has been involved more often than not. And I go back to what Michael Beale said when he came up the road from London. he quoted himself as saying that Ryan Jack's one of the players he desperately wants to have around. And I think of the last remaining guys that we now know that are out of contract, I think Ryan Jack and Ryan Kent are the two guys that Michael Beale will be particularly keen to make sure are still around from the summer onwards, at least for another year. Perhaps in Ryan Jack's case, just another 12 months will be plenty with the option to renew that as time passes. But I think as it stands just now, there's no doubt that the two Ryans will be the two guys that I think will be given priority as far as contract discussions are concerned. Scott, I want to speak to you a little bit about Ben Davies, who I felt yesterday was calmness personified from start to finish. It was quite obvious that Goodwin set up his team to throw the balls up to Stephen Fletcher and hope that he could occupy both centre halves. I think for part of certainly the first half, I felt it almost worked, because I think Fletcher gave Goldson a bit of a tough game yesterday, but thankfully Ben Davies was on hand to sort of, I don't want to say dig him out, but I felt out of the two of them at centre half yesterday, I thought Ben Davies looked far more comfortable against a season campaign, unlike Stephen Fletcher.
100% aye. So Ben Davies for me, consistently every single game I've saw him, and I've always had him in and amongst the man of the match contenders. I know he was given man of the match by Kyle and the other guy who was at Ibrox with him yesterday. But no, so Ben Davies for me has been consistently very, very good. And I watched him yesterday thinking to myself, why is it that I think he is so good? What is he doing differently to the defenders? And as you say, it's the calmness. He never looks like he's hurried. He's always in the right position. He reminds me a wee bit, and it's weird to say it because he's still at the club. It's not as if he's died. He reminds me a bit of a faster Phil Hollander. He just seems to always be in the right place. A very, very good and capable defender. And I put a comment in the TII group chat yesterday saying that I felt like Ben Davies was just a more rounded version and a better and more rounded version of Phil Hollander. I think Ben Davies, there'll be questions obviously about the outlay that we put out there from the money we spent on him. There's always going to be question marks on that. But I think in terms of partner for Connor Goldson, couldn't have picked a better defensive partner there. I sort of feel sorry for John Souttar especially, because I just don't see how he muscles himself into a 2. Obviously, as Kyle said, we flirted with a 3 yesterday. We did the same in the game before as well. So there's maybe that option for him. But Ben Davies, for me, so calm. He's always in the right place, never looks hurried. And as well as he's passing between the lines, he's the one defender who's willing to step out of that back line and play a through ball straight into the striker's feet. He's not always just looking to lump it off to John Lundstrom or Nico Raskin. He's willing to take a bit of responsibility. And by the way, he can ping a Connor Goldson 40-yarder as well at times. Very good player.
Scott, I think you're absolutely right. I like the way that you're sort of referring to the fact that he's able to bring the ball out, and that's what I'm going to throw in the mix next, Kyle. I think of all of our defenders, he's probably the best footballer I think we have in there. And I do think John Souttar is a really, really good footballer. I think he's technically very good. He can play that sort of defensive mid role, which we've seen him play sort of domestically up here with other clubs, granted, in the past. But I think Ben Davies, as well as being a really, really, really good defender, I think he's technically a very good footballer as well.
Yeah, first and foremost, I mean, it's nice to see like a guy that's that comfortable. I mean, I was honestly not sure about him at the start of the season, but he had a few sort of good moments in games, but he never really had any, standout games. But for me, he's in that role or in that mode where he's just consistently giving us 7 out of 10. 8 out of 10 performances every week, and that is what we want as a Rangers support. We just want consistency. I mean, there's not really much else to touch on what you guys have said. He's a fantastic footballer with the ball at his feet. I mean, my only comment to add to that would be in terms of where he clears the ball. He won a ridiculous amount of headers yesterday. I think he won 5 out of his 6 aerial duels, which, okay, there wasn't much going on coming forward from Dundee, but it was important that we stopped things at source. And it's when he's clearing the ball, he doesn't just hoof it out the pitch, or he doesn't just get rid of it. I'm sure he would if the situation dictated that, but he always finds a man, or he plays it to an area where at least it's going to be competitive for an opposition player and one of our guys to go and get it. But yeah, he's really, 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 coming along, Ben Davies, and I think it was Rangers on Tour said there a full pre-season with him, Okay, as much as there's still stuff to play for this year, I think he's got to be starting going forward for us, and I think he'll be in that left centre half position for a good 2 years if he continues the vein of form that he's in at the moment.
Just to reinforce that as well. Sorry, Kyle. Sorry to interrupt, Scott.
No.
See, you look at the aerial duel stat. Stephen Fletcher's probably one of the best aerial strikers in the league. And see, to win the amount of headers he did against Stephen Fletcher, it's all about he's reading of the ball there, and he's reading of where that player's going to be. It's not about being a 6'7" defender. That's not what he's at. He's a very, very clever and technical defender. Sorry to interrupt, Scott.
No, not at all. I think you're absolutely right. It was good to, as I say, there's no doubt in my mind that the plan from Jim Goodwin yesterday was to sort of see that Fletcher occupied, if not both, then it's certainly one of our 2 centre-halves yesterday, in the hope that one of the 4 that was playing behind could get close to him and feed off any scraps. I think they dealt with Stephen Fletcher reasonably well. I know there was a sort of breaking play in the first half where Dundee United were in, and I think Goldson slipped, to be perfectly honest with you, but Davies was there to sort of clean up at the back. He's someone who I think that, and Rangers on Tour sort of refers to the back 3, granted it refers to Souttar playing in that sort of right-sided centre-half role. I think he has that ability to play either the back 4 or the back 3 equally as well. And I've said on this podcast before, I don't think you can ever underestimate the importance of having a left-sided, left-footed centre-half. I think it's really important in the modern game. I think we've seen a lot of players recently play in that role who continue to come in on the right-hand side. It also gives the guy that whoever's playing left-back, whether it's Borna Barisic, whether it is Ridvan, whether it's young Adam Devine potentially filling in there, I think it gives them a bit of confidence as well, because they'll know how to receive the ball, how to pass the ball to the full-back, etc. So I think it's a big deal having someone of Ben Davies' calibre playing in there. And I think that it's no coincidence that our form since he came back in across that back line has been really quite pleasing. So here's hoping he stays fit and we continue to see him in this current vein of form that he's in and out. And it would be really nice for him to end the season with a trophy, because I think this is the first time as well that he's found somewhere where he is getting the opportunity to play some regular football. And I think a guy at his age, that's particularly important. Kyle, I want to come in. I don't want to keep you guys for much longer. I know we've had a technical difficulty tonight. We apologise for that. However, I'm conscious of time. I want to do a little bit with you, Kyle, on Malik Tillman. The Rangers Review spoke about Ross Wilson apparently already in discussions with Bayern Munich to activate the clause that is ongoing right now. It was also reiterated to you and Ross post-match against Dundee United yesterday. It seems like that deal is beginning to gather a little bit of pace now as the season ends.
Yeah, 100%. It was obviously it was the guy everybody was talking about after the game yesterday, and Beale spoke about him as he would do, that a player that's just scored 2 goals. I think he was bumming him up before the game and after the game as well. From what I remember, he basically said that all the signs are that Malik's not given any indication that he doesn't want to be here, and that Beale they'd be looking to basically activate the buyout clause from Bayern. Yeah, I know. I think everybody's well versed in my opinion on this. I get that there's sort of 3 camps. There's the just shut up and take my money now for him. There's he's got to do it against sort of proven opposition. Obviously he's got to do it in the Old Firm next week, which is going to be a huge test for him. And or there's the third sort of opinion in terms of the £5 million could be better spent elsewhere. From my point of view, we've been crying out for a guy to score against the jobbers, so to speak. And he's a midfield player with 12 goals and 4 contributions. I don't think it's going to be unreasonable to expect him to reach 20 goals this season. And when, honestly, was the last time could you say that a Rangers midfielder returned a scoring record like that? So yeah, for me, it's just Malik Tillman is an absolute no-brainer. We should be signing this guy, and to even take it a step further, I think we should be building the team around him, Raskin, Cantwell, and Tom Lawrence when he comes back. I think that's the 4 sort of attacking players that we have to build our team around next year.
Scott, you've already spoke about Tillman. It's a no-brainer for you in the summer, isn't it?
100%. I think if we've got the money there, and by all accounts, according to Beale yesterday, the money is there, and for what Kyle's heard, from the horse's mouth, as it were, it sounds like moves are being made. Absolutely, I'd get him in, and as Kyle says, you build a team around. I'd say him, Raskin. I'd go with him and Raskin. I'm not sure about Tom Lawrence, if I'm honest, mate. But yeah, no, build a team around him and Raskin, definitely, and Cantwell. I think that's the 3 that you go with.
Curiously enough, Scott, I'm just where do you stand on the? So I jumped into the now infamous WhatsApp group that we have, and I did say that I still almost think we need to keep our powder dry on the Tillman deal a little bit, purely based on I don't think we've really seen him do it in big games just yet. And it kind of was met with derisory nonsense, as you expect from you people. But where do you stand on it? I mean, do you think have we seen enough from him in the games that we really care about? And do you know what I mean? Let's be honest. If he goes to Celtic Park next week and has an absolute stinker, then has another stinker at the end of April, and then it doesn't happen for him in the last Old Firm game, are we still looking to sign Malik Tillman at that point?
For me, I think he's shown all the necessary qualities to be a top level player for us. I think people are very quick to forget about Tillman back at the start of the season in the Champions League qualifiers. He was a fantastic player in that game when he got a cracking goal, jumped 20 foot in the air, and I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say that. No, I think he's got all the qualities there to be a brilliant football player. I was saying yesterday, and again, it's Dundee United, so you try not to get ahead of yourself, but he's a special player. Very rarely do you see a player able to take the ball in such tight positions and just ghost by opposition players as if they're not even there. I think for me, you give them the money. And yeah, I think we'll make a lot of money on Malik Tillman, whether that's from Bayern in the future, negotiating a buyback clause, or whether that's from us selling him on. I think we'll make a lot of money for Malik Tillman in the future if we can get this deal over the line.
Yeah, I mean, listen, from my perspective, I think it would be... I would like us to sign him. I would just like to see him do a little bit more in the sort of big domestic games. And I think he's got 3 huge domestic games coming up between now and the end of the season where he will have that opportunity to showcase his bits and pieces, and hopefully that happens. Kyle, there's 3 big games coming up, and I'm looking at the chat and I'm seeing people we care about every game, which of course we do. There's no doubt that the 3 games against Celtic between now and the end of the season are going to form a lot of what we can or can't do in the summer, and what we will or will not be celebrating come the summer.
Yeah, it's a huge week. It's or a huge month ahead for us, I suppose. It's I know there's been a few people saying that the league's all been virtually done. It's really difficult for me to see. I mean, if we win both and get it back to 3 points, that'll be an absolute minor miracle, to be honest with you. But let's not forget we run an absolute excellent run of form ourselves as well. Again, the manager touched on it. Lundstrom touched on it as well. It's just, I hate to say it, but the other half of the city have been also in good form, and it's the start of the season under the tenureship of Van Bronckhorst that's got us in this situation. But yeah, it's a huge game at the weekend, as you said. There's a few players in there that have got to go there. It was very much that was the phrase, and I know some people can get absolutely sick of it, and I know that some people, especially on social media, were going, "How many times are we going to hear this?" But it's the first time under Beale that we've had to hear it, and I believed what he was saying. We've got to go there and we've got to prove ourselves. And we do, and I'm in agreement with you. I think to dispute that he's not done it in big games for Tillman. I think it was AG brought a comment up there saying that he did virtually get us through to the Champions League, but he has to have a good game against Celtic. He can't go hiding. And the one for me, which will be very interesting next week, will be genuinely to see who plays left back. I don't know who he's going to put in there at left back, but I think if he chooses Borna, he's one that's certainly got to go and prove himself in that game next week as well.
Yeah, and listen, I think we're in for a really interesting week. There's no doubt that the sooner the weekend gets here, the closer it gets. That's when I don't want to say when the battle fever starts, but you become certainly a lot more excited about it. Probably apprehensive as well, Scott. I don't know how you feel looking into that game. I don't want to go too far ahead as far as predictions are that are concerned, but as things stand just now, Kyle's absolutely right. We've been a great run of form. Since Beale came in, 20 played, 18 wins, a draw at New Year against that lot, and then of course he loses the cup final. But do you know what I mean? 18 from 20 is quite an incredible record. Do you know what I mean? It's just a pity that the 2 that we've sort of fell short on, one of which I really think we should have seen out, has been against them.
100%. And as Kyle says, I think the league was lost in that sort of period towards the end of Gio's tenure. For my battle fever sort of thing, I start the week, so right about now, I'm thinking it's going to be a tight game. We'll get to Sunday evening and we're going to beat them 7-0. That's the only way. I think that's the only way that these weeks usually go. I think it's going to be a tight game. I can't see it one way or the other, if I'm totally honest right now. I'm nervous about it, but as you say, a lot of players have got a lot to prove. Tillman has a lot to prove in this game. He's either not showed up in previous games or been injured. Borna needs to exercise a few demons if he's the one that's given the left back role. But no, I'm confident that we can show up and show a better version of ourselves. We need to get the players to temper their emotions, temper their expectations, because it is coming back to bite us in the arse right now. with a lot of these players coming out in the press. I seen one for John Lundstrom today saying we're going to show a different version of ourselves or a better version of ourselves. That's fine. Let's not go with the fashion Sakala other mob crap anymore. Let's just keep things respectful, keep our noses clean, and hopefully get out of Dodge with a win next week.
Yeah. Listen, Scott, it's always good to have you on, buddy. Thanks for coming on. Apologies for the technical errors at the start, which I think has came from my end this evening. So thanks for coming on, mate.
No worries, mate. Take care.
Thank you. Kyle, always good to have you on. You've had a really busy weekend for this Ibrox. So listen, it goes without saying, thanks for your efforts. We really appreciate it.
Oh, not at all. Honestly, wouldn't have changed it for the world, to be honest with you. Getting to go to Ibrox on a Saturday and a Sunday. I mean, despite the B team result today, which, yeah, well, we won't go into that, but yeah, despite it was good.
It's worth pointing out that the B team for the first 40 minutes up until Budinaukis got sent off were absolutely all over Celtic B team, the best team by quite a distance this afternoon. And do you know what I mean? How many times have you watched games on the telly where sending off changes games? And today it was very, very prevalent, of course. In the end, we had 3 sending offs, but that first sending off was absolutely the difference. Yeah, commiserations to the B team today. There's a lot of glum faces, none more so than David McCallum's in the press room at 4:30 this afternoon. Listen, if you have joined us tonight for the first part and then the middle and the whatever happened to the Gremlins in the middle, we again apologise for that. If you have joined us, thanks. And if you've bared with us, then we appreciate that very much. If you're following us on Twitter or Instagram and Facebook, thank you. If you're not, we are in there as @This Is Ibrox on Instagram and Twitter. You can also find us This Is Ibrox across our Facebook channel. If you're looking at us on YouTube tonight, thank you for that. If you have not toggled on the bells there, then I suggest you do that each time we release a podcast. Don't forget it's a Monday or a Wednesday, the bulletins with Craig and Kyle. You'll get a notification to say that we are live and you can join us. I am back next Sunday for the Sunday session. Craig is here tomorrow from 6:30. If you can join him, please do. Have a good week, whatever you're up to, and I'll see you again next Sunday. Good night.